0 coins, level 1, 3 lives. Let's just get 1 coin. And then let's stop it here. So we've got 1, 2 and 3. Continue. Yeah, we're on level 2, 1, 2 and 3. Let's just die a couple of times. Take our lives down to 1. Turn it off. Continue. And there we go, we've got 1 life. So it saved our life, it saved our level, and it saved our coins.
I'm Xanderwood. I make indie games and tutorials on game development. I also play your indie games every week on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so you never miss a video.
And before we continue with the video, just a massive thank you and a shout out to my wonderful Patreons and YouTube channel members: Foozle CC, Amari Lewis, Rob, Matt, Julian Cruz, Seth Coble, M Mark Games, Fam Van, Mood for Sale, Lighting Cat, Retro Galaxy, Martin K, Olivier Bernier, Tor Alexanderson, Jared Dumont, Yanni Boy, Charcoal, and Ahmad Famansar. For more information about what's on offer on the Patreon, there's a link in the description. Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to do an auto save tutorial today. I've had a couple of requests for this. So what we're going to set up is a system where you start the game and you can choose new game or saved game. If you choose new game, the system will automatically erase all save data. And if you choose to continue your save game, then it will load you at the level that you ended on with all the coins that you'd collected up until that point. The game will also auto-save itself after each level is completed. Now, all I have to start with is 1 layout and 1 event sheet. At the moment, the event sheet is empty, and the layout just consists of a solid tile background, which is my platform, a green cube with the platform behavior, 3 coin sprites. This is just 1 sprite that I've made, 8 by 8, with just a coin image in the middle, and then this duplicated instance of the background here. So if I play the game, I can move around with the arrow keys. I can't pick up any coins because that's not programmed, and I can't go anywhere or do anything. First thing we're going to need is a title screen. So let's go over to layouts and add another layout, and we can add layout only, because we're going to link this layout to the existing event sheet 1. I'm going to change the name of layout 2 to title, and I'm going to drag it to the top. And then over in my properties on the left under view, I'm going to set first layout to title, just so that when we export the game eventually, the title screen will be the first screen that plays. If you had a loader screen, obviously you'd probably want to use that as well. Now I'm going to change the size of this one to 320 by 180, and I'm also going to change the size of the viewport, because you can see here the dotted line that goes all the way around. My viewport is quite wide, so I'm going to go ahead and change the size of the viewport to 320 by 180. Now I've just got a single screen for my title. Now the title's not going to be fancy, it's just going to need a little bit of text that will say start new. You can fancy yours up however you want. Just for the sake of the tutorial though, I'm just going to leave it pretty standard, and I am going to create another instance of that, and I'm going to change this one to say continue. Now what you could do is you could add in a little prompt underneath this that says starting a new game will erase all saved data. Or if you're going to be really good about it, really clever, you could just add in a system where a little menu, warning prompt pops up that just says, "Are you sure you want to start a new game, or your old data will be lost?" But this is just as easy enough a way to do it, because you can still tell the player that what they're about to do will have an effect on previous games. Now we're going to create a button to click. I'm not going to put much effort into my button because this tutorial is about the autosave. I'm going to change this to 32 by 16, and I'm going to leave that there. In fact, I'm just going to drag it and copy, and I'm going to pop put both of these to the back Z order center bottom, so they'll just go behind them. Again, you can snap it to grid if you want, just to make it everything in alignment. Then you know everything's nice and lined up. There we go. Now these sprites are going to be named btn for button underscore menu, and I'm going to give these an instance variable because we've got two of them and they're effectively the same sprite. We're going to need to distinguish between the two of them, so they're going to need an instance variable. So we're going to add that to the object itself. This one is going to be called ID, and it's going to be let's make it a string so we can name it specifically the things that we want. So the first one's going to be called new, and if we click onto this one, you can see over here on the left hand side in the instance variables, change this one to con. So new and continue. So now we can reference those individual buttons. Now let's go back to our event sheet, and we're going to add our first event. So we're going to say add an event, and we're going to say mouse. If you don't have the mouse already in your game, by the way, just double click and you can come down here to input, and you'll see the mouse icon and also the keyboard icon, which you'll need as well in the input section. Add both of those things in. So we're going to add an event. I'm going to say mouse. I'm going to say on object clicked, and that's left clicked, and we're going to say the button menu. Now we need to add a sub event so we're going to check to see which one we're clicking on. So double click, button menu, and we're going to go ahead and compare the ID of that button. Now the first one we called new, so just go ahead and type that in, copy and paste, and the second one we called con. So depending on whether we're clicking new or con, we want things to happen, and that's where we add in the action. So if we're clicking on the button menu and the ID of that button is new, then we're going to add an action, and we're going to go system, and we're going to go to layout 1, because that is the first level of the game. So we're always going to go to level 1 no matter what. Deleting all the save data will come shortly. So now we need more than one level. So we need a way to complete level 1 and move on to level 2. So what we're going to do is go on to layout 1. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this, and this is going to be called layout 2. And all I'm going to do in layout 2, just so we can distinguish between the two of them, is add in another platform. I'm going to put 3 more coins on that side. So now we've got, oh, I've just changed layout 1. I changed layout 1 to the 2 platforms. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to make layout 2 a long platform, and I'm going to put the 3 coins spaced out. It doesn't really matter as long as you can tell the difference between the 2 levels. So layout 1 is going to be that, layout 2 is going to be that. Okay, perfect. Now we need a way to exit level 1. So I'm going to use the X position of the player. I'm going to say that if the player is off the screen to the right hand side, then the level's completed, and we're going to move to level 2. So go back to the event sheet, we're going to add an event, and we're going to say player character, and we're going to compare the X position of the player. Now if the X position of the player is greater than, and we can say viewport right, and then in the X coordinate here, if you go on find expressions, we can actually find what we're looking for in the system. So you click on system here, and we want to find an X position of here you go, layout width, the width of the current layout. Now we can hard code that in to 320 because we know the width of our layout is 320, but if we were having levels of varying different widths and sizes, then that would be difficult because we need to change that for every single level that we had. But if we would just say the layout width, then we know that whenever the player reaches this position here, it's going to trigger that event. So when the player's X position is greater than player width, system, go to next layout. So let's give that a try. We'll go back to the title screen. We'll click on Start New, and all of a sudden we have an issue because layout 1 is way bigger than the viewport. Layout 1 is actually 640 by 360. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this up into the level. Pop the player up there as well, and I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to drag that across, and I'm going to just resize this to 320 by 180. Pop the player back over here. Just make sure that level 2 is the same. Should have really checked this before, but hey ho. Pop these 3 coins at the top of level 2. Okay, let's give it another try. Start game. There we go. We've got the player. We can't collect coins yet. We're going to fix that soon. As soon as I go to the right hand side, he's now on to level 2. Now, this is all well and good, but if we die on level 2, we want the game to be able to recognize that we've reached level 2 and start us back there when we hit continue. So I'm going to go ahead and put a drop in there so he can drop off the screen. I'm going to go ahead and change the width of this one as well to 320 by 180. And we need to add in a way now for the player to die. So let's go back to the event sheet, add an event. We're going to say player, and we're going to compare the Y position this time. Because within our game we only have the one height of the viewport. I can simply just go ahead and compare. If I go to find expression again, I can compare the height of the layout. Oh, get rid of that 0 at the beginning. So if it's greater than layout height, then what we're going to do is player, destroy, and system, restart layout. So there we go. As soon as we fall off the bottom, we instantly get restarted. Now, let's continue. We need to now make the coins collectible. So let's add another event, player on collision with another object. We're going to say coin. What we're going to do now is destroy the coin, but we also want to create a variable that will track how many coins we've collected. So let's right click at the bottom of the event sheet, and we're going to add a global variable, and we're going to call this one coins, and it's going to be a number. Every time we collide with a coin after we destroy it, we're going to go system, and we're going to add to coins 1. Now this is going to pose us our first problem, because once we fall off the bottom of level 2 and we restart the layout, all the coins that we've collected are going to respawn. So I'm going to collect all those coins, collect those 3, come back, because we're restarting the layout, and that is not what we want. So let's go back into the event sheet and get rid of restart layout, and instead of that we're going to respawn the player. Now we can do that by hard coding in exactly where we want that position to be, but what I like to do is create a spawner that we can move around the level. So double click, add a sprite. You can really make this any size that you want to. Color it whatever color you want to, because it's not going to be visible. With it selected, I'm going to change its name to spawner, and down here on the left where it says initially visible, I'm going to say no. I'm going to uncheck that box. I'm going to pop this in over here. So he's going to spawn in. I like to have the player spawn in slightly higher and then drop down to the floor. I think it looks a little bit nicer. You could, if you wanted to have it just on the floor, that's up to you, it doesn't really matter. But what we're going to do now is we're going to tell the system that when we die to respawn our player. And I'm going to do that in a function because we're going to be using that function a lot. So we're going to add function, and I'm going to call this the respawn function. Now, when we call the respawn function, the first thing we want to do is add an action, and we're going to say spawner, and we're going to say spawn another object. And that object is going to be the player character on layer 0, image point 0, because we've only got one layer that we're working with. And that's all our function is going to need to be right now. And then all we need to do once our character is below the layout height is call that function. Now if I just put it in here and I say respawn, then this is potentially going to cause us a problem. Have a think and see what you think that problem might be, and then I'll play the game, and if you were right, just pat yourself on the back. But let's see if what you think was correct. And it's not working. So let's put the destroy player in the respawn function. So when we reach that layout height, we're going to destroy the player and then immediately respawn the player. Oh, and the reason it's not playing is because we put the spawner on layout 1. So probably all of those other things would have worked just fine, but let's try it again now with the spawner. There you go. So now we fall off the bottom and we respawn. And the coins don't come back. So we're getting there. Now we need to go to layout 1 and we need to put in some text to display how many coins we have. So I'm going to add in a text box, put it at the top here. I'm going to change the font color to white. I'm just going to change it to 0, and I'm going to horizontally align it to the right. And I'm going to name this text box txt underscore coins. And then on the event sheet, I'm going to go and add an event, and I'm going to go system, and I'm going to say every tick. And every tick, I want to set that coin box. I want to set the text. And the first thing I want to do is set the text to coins, and then a space. And then outside the parentheses, I want to put the and symbol. And then we want to use that global variable coins. So you're going to have coins, which is going to be the text with a space, and then the coins variable. Now you can see that the text here is on layout 1 but not layout 2. So what we want to do is over in the layers, add a layer above, and I'm going to call this one HUD. And now the HUD layer is going to be global, and all my global layers I like to put in capital letters so I can see them at a glance. With that HUD layer selected, come over to the top left, change global to yes, and then make sure that this text object is on the HUD layer. Now when we click on layout 2, as long as we add in that HUD layer and spell it exactly the same, it will appear as it does on layout 1. We don't need to add it in the title level, because in the menu layout, because it's not valid there. So start a new game, you can see we've got coins and it says 0. Now we can collect the coins. So back in the event sheet, let's add a group, because I like to group things together to make the events a little bit easier to read. I'm just going to call this one saving. Now in order to save stuff in a game in Construct, you need to add in local storage. So double click under data and storage here, you can see local storage, double click, add that in, and go back to the event sheet. Now the first thing we need to do is, now we've got local storage, is come up here to the event that says mouse on click menu button. If the menu button is new, go to layout 1, but we want to add an action in there, and we want to go local storage, and we want to clear storage. We're going to do that before we go to layout 1, because we don't want any of our previous data to be valid once we reach the first level. Now, in order to determine what level we're going to be on when we start, so if we reach level 2, in order to start level 2, we need to add in another global variable to track that. So go ahead and add another global variable, and I'm going to call this one a level, and the number is going to be 0. Now, immediately when we click on In fact, let's change that number to 1. Because level 1 is going to be the first level. Now we need to add into our go to next level event here. Once we pass the right hand edge of the layout, as well as going to next level, we also want to say system. In fact, this is probably better to be done on a trigger once. So let's sub event it, system trigger once, just to make sure we don't add more than 1 to our levels, and then say system add to levels 1. Now let's also put in some more text up here. Let's go ahead and clone that text box, and we're going to call this one text level, so we can keep track visually as well of what level we're on. Go back to the event sheet. In the every tick, let's just add it in like we did before. Text level, set text, and this is going to be level space and then that global variable level. Now we should see if we're clicking up. There we go, level 2. Perfect, we're getting there. Okay, now we need to add in some lives so that once the player runs out of lives, we go back to the title screen. So let's add in a global variable. We're going to call this one lives. We're going to set it to 3 because the player is going to start with 3 lives. And now on the respawn function, every time we call that, we're going to say system, and we're going to subtract from lives 1. Now, this is where we need to start building on this function. Select the whole function, add a sub event, and we're going to check now to see how many lives the player has when he dies. So we're going to compare that variable lives, and as long as it's greater than 0, which means we don't have 0 lives, then we're going to call the spawner and get him to get the spawner to respawn that character. However, and I can just copy this down, if the lives are less than or equal to 0, then what we need to do is say system, go to layout, title. So we're going to go back to the beginning. Or if you wanted to add in a game over screen, you could add in a game over screen, but I'm going to keep it simple just with the 3 layouts. So let's go ahead and start the game. Let's collect some of these coins. 1, 2, 3. And we're back to the beginning again. If we hit start new game, in fact, that would be good to check to make sure that these coins, well, we haven't actually told the system to save these coins yet, so it doesn't matter. Oh, but because we didn't reset our lives, you saw that when we restarted the game, we immediately went back to the title. So what we need to do is, in the event sheet, if the lives are equal to 0, go to the title screen, but we also want to then set the lives back to 3. So we're going to set value of lives to 3. And then we'll be able to die 3 more times again. So we're going to start a new game. 1, 2, 3. Start new game. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Continue obviously does nothing. Great, now we're getting there. Now we've got some variables that we can start saving. So to start auto-saving the game, we're going to create another function. So we're going to right click, we're going to add a function, and we're going to call this the death function. So after we've respawned a couple of times, if we die and we don't have any lives left, we're going to call the death function. Now the death function is going to start saving things for us. So if we've got 0 lives or equal to 0 lives or less than, we're going to go to the title screen, we're going to reset the lives back to 3, but we're also going to call that death function. And this death function is, like I said before, going to start saving our data. So the first thing we're going to want to save is the total number of coins that we've collected up until our death. So we're going to say local storage, and we're going to say set item. Now the key is pretty much anything that you want. I'm going to call it coins, and then the value is going to be global variable coins. So you can delete the parentheses. So we're going to name our coins to the value coins. So what that effectively means is we're just giving this a reference name of coins. So when we load the game or when we start the game, we can look to see if that reference exists. So we're going to set the value of coins to coins. We're also going to go in and we're going to set item. And that item is going to be level. And the value of that is going to be level. And the last one, because we may stop the game when we have, one life left, is lives. So we're going to go in and we're going to set item, and I'm going to name it lives because that's exactly what it is. And it's going to be lives. So now these are the three global variables that we're going to want to save once we die. So when we call that death function, we're going to set all of those things. Now, when we start the game, we're going to want to check to see if these things exist. So let's add another event, go system, and we're going to say on start of layout. And this is where I'm going to start putting this into the saving group. So on start of layout, we're going to check to see if these items exist. So local storage, and we are going to say check item exists. And we're going to check all three of those. So we're going to say coins. We're going to say level. And we're going to say lives. Let's add another event. I'm going to go local storage. And we're going to say on item exists, which means if the system finds these items, what do we do with them? And again, we're going to type it in. Coins. Copy paste. Level, and again these must be spelled exactly the same way we've referenced them up there. And lives. If these things do exist, then what do we want to do with them? Well, we're going to need to set our existing global variables to match exactly what they were when we saved them. So we're going to say on coins exists, we're going to add an action, and we're going to say local storage. So we're going to say system, set value of coins to local storage dot item value. Then I'm going to copy this down, and I'm going to say level. I'm going to copy it down again, and I'm going to say lives. Now effectively what we've said here is that when we start the game, check to see if these things exist. If they do exist, then set them according to what they were when we stored them here on set item. So now if we play the game, we should automatically, even if we start a new game, be able to see the global variables and the saving taking place. So at the moment it's level 1, 0 coins. So let's go ahead and collect some coins. One, two, three, and we've died. Start new game, and you can see it says level 2 and coins. The problem is it starts us back on level 1, which is what we don't want, and then it adds 1 to level 3. So what we need to do when we start the game now is, if we're on level 2, start the player on level 2. So let's go up here. Okay, I've made a mistake. I've gone one step ahead of myself. On local storage on item exists, we don't want to be saying set this. What we need to be doing is going to local storage and saying get item, and that item is going to be coins. So we can delete those. So if the coins exist, then we get the coins. Then I'm going to copy that down, and we're going to say the same thing for level. level exists, and I'm going to say the same thing for lives. If lives exists. Now we can add in another one, and we can say local storage, and we can say on item get, and that's going to be coins. Copy paste a couple more times, change this one to level, and change this one to lives. Then we can add in set it. So we can go system and we can set value of coins to local storage dot item value. Copy that down, change that from coins to level, change that from level to lives. There. Now let's just test. Collect 3 coins, die, and it doesn't reset, which we'll look at in a minute, but if we close it and reopen it, oh, it does reset. Okay. Let's just disable clear storage a minute and just make sure that it is saving when we hit new game. So we'll just get 3. Close the game. Start the game. And it is saving, yeah. So we've got the 3 there. And it still says to level 2. Okay, fine. So what we've got going on now is it's not clearing the local storage when we click new, because we're clicking it and it's going to level 1 too quickly, is what I think's happening. It's not getting an opportunity to clear it. But what would effectively happen is it will clear it ready for the next round, if that makes sense. So let me just show what I mean. If we collect all the coins here, say 9, and then we die 3 times and we go back, it's going to still say 9 and 3, but if we close it and open it again, it goes back to 0. So what happens is it clears the storage after it's gone to layout 1, and effectively it's 1 step too late, if that makes sense. So what we need is to duplicate this block, change this one from on clicked to on button released, and delete go to layout 1 and then delete storage. So effectively we've got 2 identical blocks here, but one says when we click the button and one says when we release it. So on the click we're going to clear the storage, but on the release we're going to go to layout 1, and I'm hoping that that will fix the problem. So we've died, click and release, and it hasn't fixed our problem. So let's just undo. I think what we're also going to need to do is go to system and reset global variables, clear storage and reset global variables. So I'll collect the 3 coins. Yeah, there we go, and it's gone back to 0. Okay, perfect. So now when we click on continue, now this is where we're going to want to load the game. So we're going to need to add in a sub event here to check to see what level we're on. So we're going to go system, and we're going to compare variable, and we're going to compare level, and we're going to say is equal to 1, and another one we're going to say is equal to 2. Now if level is equal to 1, we're going to say system go to layout 1. If it's equal to 2, we're going to say go to layout 2. And because we're not fiddling around with the storage here, we're not clearing any of the data, that should automatically pick up that we're on level 2, because we're going to set it at the start of the layout. So we're going to go new game, we're going to collect some coins, We're going to collect these coins. And now we're going to say continue, and it puts us back at level 2 with the 9 coins, which is what we want. If we close it down, we play it again, and we say continue, puts it back at level 2 with the 9 coins, which is what we want, and also the 3 lives. If we go back to start new game, puts it back to level 1 with 0 coins, back on level 1. If we just die once, in fact, let's now just double check if by adding another text object to track our lives. I'm going to call this one lives. I'm just going to go back to the event sheet, underwrite every tick, and I'm just going to add in that text lives. Say set text, and the text will be lives with a space, and then the and symbol, and then the variable that we just created, or we created a while back, lives. Now we can check. There we go, lives 3. Go back to title. Now we can just check to make sure that if we die and then turn the game off, so we've got to level 2, we've got 2 coins, and we've got 2 lives, but we've got to close the game. I'm going to come back to it another time. So we're going to say preview project, and we're going to say continue. And it's not working, and the reason it's not working is because only calling that a death function, which saves everything when we get to 0 lives. So what we're going to need to do is call that function on the actual respawn itself, called death. In fact, that's probably a worse name for it. Let's rename that to save. So we're going to call that save function every time we respawn, rather than when we finally die. We're also going to want to call that save function when we go to the next layout, because we might not necessarily die and then turn the game off. So as long as we're calling it when we go to the next layout and when we fall off and die once, we should be covered on all bases. So let's just start a new game, 3 lives. Let's collect a couple of coins. So we've got 3 coins, 2 lives, and level 1. That should be level 2. Why is that saying level 1? Let's put the save function under that one. Let's go new game. So 1 coin, level 2, that's better. 2 lives. So we've got 1 coin, level 2, 2 lives. Let's close it down. Let's start it again. Let's continue. 1 coin, level 2, and we're back to 3 lives. Why did it not recognize how many lives we had? What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put that save function in both of these sub events, whether we have or not have lives. But we're going to save it first. New game. 0 coins, level 1, 3 lives. Let's just get 1 coin. And then let's stop it here. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. Continue. Yeah, we're on level 2, 1, 2, and 3. Let's just die a couple of times. Take our lives down to 1. Turn it off. Continue. And there we go. We got 1 life. So it saved our lives, it saved our level, and it saved our coins. Get 4 coins and die. Continue. We're back at level 2 with 4 coins and 0 lives. So I think we don't need to save it if we've got less than 0 lives, because it's going to remember that final save, which we don't want. We want to save it as long as we've got at least 1 life. So a new game. Collect a couple of coins. Level 2, 3 lives. Continue. level 2, 2 coins, and it gives us just the 1 life back because it just remembers it on that previous save. And there you go, that's going to respawn you at the latest part of your game automatically with just the 1 life. You could change that if you wanted to give your player all the lives back afterwards. But then if we click a new game, we go back to level 1 with our 3 lives again. And there you go. That's an auto save feature that automatically saves your coins, your levels and your lives based on how far you get in the game. Sorry that was a little bit long-winded. I didn't pre-plan that one, I just thought I'd wing it. And you know, when I wing things, sometimes we go off down trial and error paths, but that's just how I do my tutorials. So you know, if you've made it this far, obviously that's working for you. Thanks for sticking around if you have made this far, and you can always give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It really does help out the channel. It costs you nothing, but it does mean a lot to me. So if you're getting any value at all from the channel, then please feel free to do those things. And if you've got any suggestions for future tutorials, I don't take them in the comments because I'll just lose track of them. Please feel free to join the Discord. There's a link in the description, and there's a channel in the Discord where you can drop your tutorial suggestions. And if it's something that I can do, then I obviously will make a video for you. So thanks for sticking around once again if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.